Hello, good afternoon. I'm Robert Uhlig. I'm the Programme Director at Bude Climate Partnership, and I'm going to put my glasses on. Now, I'm here to talk about our Shoreline Community Engagement Project, which involves a citizens' jury, which is a really effective way of engaging the community in some deliberative engagement. And by deliberative, it means that we've got an outcome that we're working towards, in our case, having a democratically representative and legitimate way of getting the community to make decisions about its future. So, Bude Climate Partnership, we're a group of 13 environmental and community organisations and town and parish councils in our area. We formed in the middle of 2020, in the early stages of the pandemic, when we got a grant from the National Lottery's Climate Action Fund. And that was an initial funding for a development project to enable us to look at our community's carbon footprint and to develop responses to it. So we did 12 different projects, some of them research projects that we commissioned, some of them were engagement projects, and there were also some pilot studies. So we did a community carbon audit and developed a climate action plan, a transport study that looked at the impact of transport on our community's carbon footprint, a tourism study, and some various other projects. And the overriding message from these projects was that for a community such as ours, our first response to climate change was about adaptation. We needed to build resilience. And then the second response that follows from that is obviously that we need to also reduce our impacts on climate change, reduce our emissions. And so in December 2022, we were awarded further funding from the lottery, £2 million over 5 years to do another 6 projects, one of which is this shoreline engagement project. So why are we doing this shoreline engagement project? Well, it's because Bude is particularly vulnerable to sea level rise. In fact, it's the most sensitive location in the UK to sea level rise. And what that means is that sea level rise with us will have a more profound effect in terms of turning what is, say, now an extreme water event that would happen every 100 years into something that would happen every 50, 20, or every year. In fact, under the current predictions, the extreme high water events that now occur once every 100 years will be happening in the Bude area at least once a year by 2070. So when we were in our development phase, we were invited by the Environment Agency to take part in a project that they were doing in Bude because of its vulnerability, which was called Bude Adaptive Pathways. And this project was looking at ways of engaging the community in making decisions about its future. And what it did was take data that is already available and look at ways in which it could be made more accessible for the community through visualizations. And they talked about all different types of visualizations that could have been used, like maps or graphic visualizations. And one of the suggestions was photo quality visualizations, which was the one that was chosen. So here's one of the visualizations. Now, this is Crooklets Beach, one of the 2 main town beaches in Bude. Now, if I was here from the Environment Agency, I'd be saying to you that these projections are based on reasonable worst-case scenarios. However, as a lot of us know, the kind of projections that have been made in the past have always tended to be exceeded, and the projections take in mean high water mark, but they don't take into account surges or spring tides or even the fact that there are waves. So it assumes the North Atlantic is a mill pond. So that's Crooklets. On the right-hand side, you can see there's a promenade, a raised promenade, which runs along what is already a defence. concrete beneath it. And the same again on the left with there's the surf club and a cafe and some beach huts. One row of beach huts on the left they were destroyed in a storm of 2013 or 2014. So that's today, and this is in the 2040s. And these dates are, this isn't exactly what's going to happen in 2040. These are dates that are thereabouts, 2040s or so. So by the 2040s, you'll see that the high water mark is much higher and the beach has dropped. Now, as I said previously, the promenade on the right is raised. So if you get out of your car in that car park, you actually walk up a slope towards the promenade. It's a very slight slope, but there's quite a, over the distance, there's quite a rise. So by the 2040s, these fortifications are being really quite extensively undermined by the sea. They're already being undermined, and there have been several times they've been reinforced by pumping more concrete in underneath them. So the next projection is in 2050, and you'll see there's really quite a profound change. So now, because of the raised nature of the promenade, something happens which is called accelerated retreat. And so it's a very quick retreat towards the back of where is now the car park. And then by the 2020s, it is even more extensive. Now, bear in mind, this is a flat sea, no storm surge, no spring tide. It is, however, what will happen if nothing is done. And the shoreline management policy for this area is that there's managed retreat. What our project is about is helping the community to have an input into what that managed retreat, what form it might take. So why did we opt for a jury? Well, because the impacts of extreme weather are already being felt really quite markedly in Bude. In the heat wave last year, we were the hottest place in the whole of the southwest. That picture on the left, that's Bude Canal, or Bude Ditch as it was known last summer. This was the tree that used to be in the triangle. You might have seen it on the news as it came down in Storm Eunice, so really quite profound effects here. Another factor is that our economy is particularly dependent on tourism. 70% of local businesses, 40% of jobs are dependent on tourism. So we needed to find a way to give our community its say on how we do it. So we're working with a company called Shared Future. They're a community interest company based up in the north of England, and they are absolute experts in this field. It's been a fantastic experience working with them. They've far exceeded our expectations. So they've delivered lots of climate juries and assemblies around the country. They were involved in the big national climate assembly that took place in Westminster, various other things like that. And they help us with the organisation and putting on the actual sessions, doing the facilitation at those sessions. So the first stage in pulling together a jury, and a jury, people talk about citizens' juries and citizens' assemblies. They're the same kind of thing, but typically an assembly would have about 100 people and a jury would have around 30 or 40. In our case, we've got 40 on our jury. So the first stage of it was to do some power mapping in our community, see where the authorities are, where people have power, who the stakeholders are. And we then wrote to something like 35 different organisations and people within our community, ranging from the rugby club and the surf club to Cornwall councillors, to the Chamber of Commerce, to GCHQ, which is the largest user of energy in our area, and invited them to come onto an oversight panel. And the purpose of the oversight panel is to make decisions about the whole process. So we're not making the decisions. They are the community, or these community representatives are making the decisions. And they agreed the demographic makeup of the jury so that it's a replication of the demographics across our entire area. And they ensure that the process runs fairly and smoothly, They selected the commentators for the first 2 days of jury sessions, and they also ensure that everybody's well represented on it. So when we invited people to come to the jury, we're paying them to come for it. We're paying them slightly more than the national living wage, so they get a voucher for £330 for the whole process, which they can spend in local shops or online. We also help them with any costs that they might have. The whole idea being so that nobody can say, I couldn't do it. So we help them with transport towards it. If they need childcare, we help them with that. If they need IT support, if they need broadband or whatever, we pay for that as well. If they need carers, we pay for their carers to come, or if they are a carer, for somebody else to care for the person they normally care for. So the first part of recruiting the jury was to send out invitations to every household in our area. So our area is what used to be the Bude Community Network area, Bude, Stratton, and then 10 parishes surrounding it. And we invited anybody in the household over the age of 16 to apply to be part of the jury. At the same time, we're also holding a youth jury at Bude Haven School. In fact, the first session is happening right now, today. And this is the first time that a youth jury has ever been conducted in a school in the UK. And then we're also working with 480 pupils in primary schools in the Bude area, and they're doing visioning exercises. So their visioning exercises will inform the youth jury, and then the youth jury's recommendations will inform the adult jury, which will come to its own set of recommendations. So from those 8,500 letters that we send out, we had 171 responses. That's about 2%, which is considered a good response by Shared Future. And then from those 171, we selected randomly through a sortition process with quite a complicated algorithm, 40 jurors. In fact, we selected 44 just in case some of them dropped out in the meantime. And they are selected so that we cover all the demographics in the same way as they are distributed right across our community in terms of age and gender and ethnicity, whether they're homeowners or whether they rent, whether they're their social deprivation, their own particular concerns about climate change, and several other demographics. So the jury came together for the first time a weekend at the end of September. So they'll be meeting for 30 hours across 3 weekends. Next weekend is tomorrow and Sunday, and then there's the final weekend is at the end of this month. So on that first day, it was mainly about breaking down barriers, getting people comfortable with each other. So there were all kinds of games that they played and activities. So here you can see some pictures from the jury. So there were things like decision trees that they worked on. There was a sort of art project. The one in the middle on the far left is that was a sort of drama project where they made up a play to do with with their thoughts about climate change. And as you can see, we fed them well, we kept them well watered, we made it as good as we could, and they loved it. I can't emphasize just how enthralling, really, the whole process was. Oh, whoops. Yeah. So, and we also invited commentators to come and speak to the jury. Now, these are not lectures where you sit and you're spoken to for quite a long period. They're more like they're short presentations, and then the jurors go off into groups and they discuss what they've heard, and they come up with questions, and then there's a big Q&A session, and it's more like a conversation with these commentators. So we had Mark Baldwin, who's Professor of Climate Science at Exeter University. Beneath him, Matt Palmer, who is a world authority on sea level rise. He is the lead author of the chapter on sea level rise in the IPCC report. Martin Alvey, who some of you, probably a lot of you know, and various different other people who we've been working with. So we're working with the Environment Agency and with Cornwall Council on this. They're not official partners, they're project partners, helping to advise and consult with us. So what's next? So, as I said, the jury is meeting again this weekend. At the end of this month, it will come up with a list of recommendations. This weekend, it's spending Saturday looking at more depth at sea level rise. Tomorrow, and then on Sunday, it's looking at ways of raising an awareness. And the recommendations that it comes up with will then be revealed at a launch event at the end of January or in early February. The leader of Cornwall Council, Linda Taylor, she's agreed to receive the recommendations of the jury, as has the Town Council. So we're also working closely with the Town Council to assist with its review of the Neighbourhood Development Plan, which in part has been prompted by us bringing to their attention the need and the opportunity to develop and incorporate a CCMA, one of those acronyms I'm sure you're familiar with, a Coastal Change Management Area and a Coastal Change Management Plan within the Neighbourhood Development Plan. And actually, in the last few weeks, so in the week after the last jury, Bude was awarded £3 million worth of funding from central government on the CTAPS project. So CTAP is the Coastal Transition Accelerator Programme, and it's this is the first time that funding has been given to anywhere in the southwest for this from that fund. Previously, it's been in Yorkshire and Norfolk. We received 3 million, and then 2 communities in Dorset are sharing 3 million between them. And that's, again, a fund to help the community adapt to the effects of sea level rise and coastal change. And so we're committed to working in the future, continuing our work with the jury members. Exactly what form that will take, we don't know yet. It really depends on what their recommendations turn out to be.
You're here today because it's actually about trying to inform you about what's going on so that you can make the decisions.
Nobody else in Cornwall is doing this.
Get your views across, and they will be listened to.
The key principles are the thing to focus on.
If you melt the Antarctic ice cap, you can't refreeze it.
How do we limit the risk?
So potentially quite serious change at Crooklets.
There is a risk if we do nothing, the changes we could see will be significant.
A lot for us all to think about in terms of the action that we need to take.
Then we can respond collectively.
Because it will make a real difference.
So thank you very much for coming, and thank you everybody.
I have to say, the whole of Cornwall and Devon is really bad. We're that smidgen worse. I mean, it's not like other places are significantly less at risk.
Any question on that?
What's been the greatest challenge in the project so far?
Getting our local MP involved, actually. Yeah, by far. Yeah. I don't mean that flippantly at all. So, as I said, Shared Future do these kind of things all around the country. They've done several dozen of them. This is the only time where an MP hasn't been involved in it.